You are not falling behind because you are lazy. You are falling behind because the rules of money were written to harvest your paycheck and protect everyone else's assets. And here is the part nobody wants to say out loud. The more you earn, the more you get taxed on your paycheck, while the people at the top engineer systems that tax them less, and sometimes only when it is convenient for them. In 2026, you can feel it in the air. Artificial intelligence is replacing middle-class work faster than career counselors can update their brochures. Inflation may have eased on paper, but your salary still buys less than it did before. Housing is no longer an investment you can eventually afford. It is a permanent transfer mechanism from you to the wealthy, and while you struggle, markets still flirt with new highs like reality is optional. This is not financial advice. This is financial education, and I am going to show you the uncomfortable logic behind 4 principles that the average person never learns until it is too late. The goal is simple. Stop confusing saving with building wealth. Stop letting strangers manage your money for their benefit. And start thinking in the language that actually makes investors dangerous. First, let's talk about the trap that keeps millions of people doing the right things for the wrong reasons. The idea that if you save hard enough, you will get ahead. In theory, saving is responsible. In practice, saving is often just slow inflation funeral prep. You work, you get paid. Then the first destination of your money is not your future. It is taxes, payroll taxes, income taxes, local taxes. The taxes stack up like late fees you never agreed to. And the cruel math is this. When you earn more, you do not just spend more. You pay more. Your marginal tax rate rises. Your withholding gets adjusted. You feel the squeeze immediately. The government calls it civic duty. They dress it up as fairness. But then you look at how the rich actually behave, and the story does not match. According to widely cited reporting over the last several years, many billionaires and the wealthiest households effectively pay lower effective tax rates than typical workers, largely because their wealth grows through capital gains, unrealized appreciation, and complex structures that shift timing and reduce what is recognized as taxable income. Even when they do pay, it is not the same system you live under every payday. Here is your uncomfortable question for 2026. When you have a paycheck, taxes arrive like clockwork. When you lose your job, when your hours get cut, when your business revenue collapses, taxes vanish in the short term, but your costs do not. Rent does not pause, insurance does not pause, groceries do not pause, student loans do not pause, your life does not pause, so the tax bill can be generous. So you try the compromise. You save harder. You cut spending. You stop eating out. You avoid new clothes. You downgrade vacations. You behave like a monk with a credit score. Then, after 2 or 3 years, you notice something horrifying. Your bank balance rises, but your buying power is not rising, and the gap is not because you made bad choices. The gap is because inflation is a quiet thief that taxes you even when nobody touches your paycheck. It steals your future through higher prices. Think about a simple example. Imagine you saved $50,000 in a world where that number represented a certain lifestyle. Fast forward 5 years. The currency didn't change. Your discipline didn't change. But what those dollars can buy changed. Even if inflation came down compared to a peak, the overall damage accumulates. Your salary may have gotten a raise on paper, but your costs often reset higher. Housing is the most brutal example in every developed economy. In the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and beyond, house prices decoupled from wages. In some markets, monthly housing costs now swallow a larger fraction of take-home pay than they did in 2019. You do not just rent, you rent while someone else builds equity, and then you watch those prices rise again faster than your savings can catch up. So you do what people always do when they feel helpless. You search for a lever, you look for investing. But then you hit the next lie, the one that looks comforting. Get professional help. You hear it in every corner. Go see a financial advisor, take a course, get a plan, study the market, build your knowledge. In the past, a lot of people pursued credentials like certified financial planner. They believed that mastering a curriculum would unlock the ability to invest safely and consistently. Here is the dark truth. Many advisors are salespeople dressed in professional clothes. They earn commissions, fees, and revenue streams from products, not from you becoming wealthy. Some of them manage assets under management agreements. Some sell insurance wrappers. Some push bank products. Some earn money regardless of whether your long-term outcome is impressive, because the incentive is to keep you in motion, keep you buying, and keep you paying. Even if an individual advisor is sincere, the system around them can still be a funnel. The structure matters more than the personality. And in 2026, this gets worse because everyone can claim expertise. You can watch 200 hours of content, absorb a vocabulary of investing, and still be watching a different game than the one you need to win. One person preaches one strategy, another person preaches the opposite. You feel confused, so you consume more. You postpone action. You delay learning what investing actually is. Let me tell you what investing is in plain, cold language. Investing is not making money sometimes. Investing is a process that converts risk into measurable outcomes that keep working even when your emotions fail. And that brings us to the first principle that actually protects you. The idea that risk is not about how much money you have. Risk is about how well you understand what you are buying. Most people assume the rich take fewer risks because they are rich. That is backward. They take fewer risks because they are insiders. An outsider sees only the headline. They see the trend. They see the idea spreading. They hear a story and they want to be part of it. An insider sees the machinery. They understand distribution. They understand costs. They understand who controls supply, who controls the user experience, who can survive down cycles, and what breaks first when demand turns. In other words, insiders know what they do not know. And then they close the gap before they bet big. Let me give you a micro story that is painful because it is plausible. Picture a man in his 30s, not a genius, just relentless. He reads about a new product trend in another country. It looks like a cheap version of something familiar. He notices the growing consumption in a place where that product does not yet exist. Then he does not buy immediately. He goes and works inside the supply chain. He observes factories. He learns how the product gets made, packaged, shipped, and sold. He talks to people who complain about losses. He watches which workers can make quality repeatable. He learns what fails in the real world, not in a brochure. Then, only after understanding how value travels from buyer to seller, he invests. If you do not understand the how, you are not investing. You are gambling with your future. Now pattern interrupt for 2026. While you were trying to pick the right investment, the actual insiders were picking the right information advantage. In an AI economy, the gap is widening. The person who understands how automation changes labor costs, how regulations change compliance burdens, and how supply chains respond to demand shocks, that person can identify winners before they become obvious. You cannot out-advice the information gap, but you can stop feeding it. So rule 1 is simple: become an insider, not by pretending you are, but by earning real understanding. And the most important part is this: you do not have to be born into the right circle. You just have to spend time in the domain where decisions are made. If you want to invest in real estate, walk neighborhoods, talk to brokers, look at deal comps until you can see prices and know which are inflated and which are slightly undervalued. Visit buildings when the market is stressed, not when it is euphoric. Watch how quickly owners move when financing tightens. The point is to build judgment from reality, not from social media. If you want to invest in a business model, stop asking what the product is and start asking what the money is. In 2026, AI can change production costs overnight, but cash flow patterns, customer retention, and distribution relationships usually change slower. That is where the durable advantage hides. And now cliffhanger insiders do not just invest differently, they also think differently about what makes an investment work, which leads to the second principle. Second principle: know the two ways wealth is generated. If you do not understand this, you will chase fantasies. There are two sources of wealth in investing. One is price appreciation. The other is cash flow. Call them the difference and the income. Price appreciation is when an asset becomes worth more than you paid. That can happen with real estate. It can happen with a business. It can happen with certain equity instruments. But appreciation is not guaranteed, and it can reverse fast. Cash flow is the recurring money the asset produces while you hold it. Rent can be cash flow. A franchise royalty stream can be cash flow. Dividends can be cash flow. Business profits can translate into cash flow if the company converts earnings into actual cash rather than accounting tricks. Many people in 2026 chase price appreciation because it feels exciting. They want the story. They want the moon timeline. They want to post screenshots. But the average household is built to fail because they do not need eventual appreciation. They need survival cash flow. They need monthly money to cover monthly obligations. If your lifestyle requires income and your investment does not pay, you will eventually be forced to sell at the worst possible time. Here is a real-world emotional image. Imagine you are a nurse in your mid-30s. You work shifts. Your body is tired. You manage a household budget with spreadsheets because you have no luxury. When you invest, you want something that pays steadily, or at least provides a path to steady income. Now imagine you buy something that only rises in price when optimism returns, and then optimism disappears. The market drops. Your savings buffer shrinks. Your rent still comes. Your car repair still comes. Your insurance renews at a higher rate. You do not get to tell life, I am holding for the long term. Life still charges you monthly. This is why cash flow matters. It is not romantic. It is not exciting. It is what keeps you from being forced into bad decisions. A second micro story. Imagine a small investor who buys a property in a way that the monthly rent almost covers the monthly loan payment. He does not do it because rent is guaranteed to rise forever. He does it because it reduces the probability of financial collapse. Over time, as rent increases and the loan balance reduces, the monthly surplus grows. That surplus becomes defensive. It pays the next move. It gives optionality. That is how many wealthy households operate. They aim for stability that lets them act when other people are frozen. Now compare that to the common mistake. People buy dividend stocks because they want income, but they do not evaluate whether the dividends are sustainable. A company can cut dividends. It can also dilute shareholders. In 2026, inflation and higher input costs can pressure margins. A dividend may look safe until it suddenly is not, and even if dividends exist, the tax treatment matters. In some countries and under many account structures, investors pay taxes on dividend income. That reduces net cash flow. This is why sophisticated investors do not just ask, does it pay? They ask, does it pay after the system takes its cut, and does it still pay under stress? Third cliffhanger. You finally understand insider advantage. You finally understand cash flow versus price appreciation. Now you think, okay, I can invest. But then you learn the most expensive human behavior in finance, sunk cost thinking. Third principle. Use capital with ruthless efficiency, or you will donate your money to your own denial. There is a behavior economists call the sunk cost fallacy. It happens when you keep funding something because you already put money into it, even after it proves it cannot work. People assume they are being loyal. They assume they are being patient. They assume they are giving it more time. But what you are really doing is treating past loss as if it must be justified. It is emotional accounting, not rational strategy. Picture this. You and a friend start a venture. You put up one chunk of cash. Your friend operates the business. At first it seems plausible. After a while, the friend runs out of money or mismanages operations. Maybe your business bleeds cash. Maybe revenue is lower than expected. Maybe the product delivery is broken. At that point, you face a choice. You can stop the project and accept the first loss, or you can invest additional money to fix it. Most people invest more. They quit their job, they add capital, and they hope that more money will reverse incompetence. That is how the sunk cost trap becomes a financial trapdoor. Your mind convinces you, if I stop now, I lose everything I already paid. But that is not the decision you are actually making. The decision you are making is, how much more are you willing to lose to avoid admitting you were wrong? And in 2026, when AI accelerates change, being wrong can turn into being wrong longer, because you get stuck in the it will recover narrative while competitors evolve faster. Let's translate the sunk cost problem into market investing, because it is everywhere. Imagine you buy a stock at $10, it drops to $5. Most people do not cut losses. They tell themselves the story that it will come back. Then they average down, buying more at lower prices. The logic feels smart because it reduces the average purchase price. But averaging down in a downtrend is like throwing gasoline on a fire and calling it heat management. If the original thesis is broken, buying more does not fix it. It just increases the size of your loss. And here is the brutal arithmetic. If a stock continues to fall from $5 to $2.5, your loss doubles relative to the initial amount invested. You did not make a better deal. You enlarged the damage. This is why some investors rely on risk controls and defined exit rules. Not because they want to trade constantly, but because they refuse to let denial run their bank account. Now you may be thinking, but that sounds like trading. Trading feels risky. Fair concern. Here is the correction. The risk is not whether you hold long or short. The risk is whether you have a plan that limits how wrong you can be. Real estate and stocks are different assets. Real estate is often held for cash flow and long-term stability. Stocks can go through cycles quickly. A company can be disrupted. A sector can be eliminated by AI and regulation. A business model can become obsolete. In 2026, the pace of disruption is the point. Some industries are being restructured by automation in ways that no one predicted at full speed. So a strategy that ignores time horizons and ignores downside thresholds can become a slow-motion wipeout. And this brings the fourth principle into view. Because even if your entry is correct, you can still lose if you break the most basic requirement of survival. You must not run out of liquidity. Fourth principle, liquidity is not optional. If your cash flow breaks, you are finished. Here is a question that sounds simple, but is the difference between investing and surviving. Can the asset pay its way when things get worse? A company can show profit on paper and still fail if it cannot pay near-term obligations. A household can be employed and still collapse if monthly bills outpace income. During financial crises, you see the same pattern. People with cash buffers survive. People without cash buffers get forced to sell or forced into bankruptcy. In 2008, housing collapsed not just because home values fell, but because cash flow broke. Some borrowers could not refinance. Some lost jobs. Some had adjustable rate mortgages that reset monthly costs upward. When banks tighten credit, the people who depended on constant refinancing become trapped. Now zoom to 2026 reality. Insurance markets in many regions have been collapsing due to climate risk. Property insurance can become unaffordable or unavailable. That raises the monthly cost of owning real estate. Even if property values do not fall immediately, the cash flow can collapse through insurance, taxes, and repairs. Some homeowners can survive because they are structured. Others get pushed out of the market. This is why liquidity and cash flow are inseparable